Oh, Jesus, we give you glory, we give you glory. We give you glory, for you made a way. You've been so good to us. Thank you, Jesus, for allowing us to be in your presence. God, we give you glory. We magnify you. We worship you. Oh, Jesus, Son of the living God. Here we are.
Wanted you guys to kind of share your personal experience for those who think that really racism is over in America or in the world. Pastor Taylor.
Well, I'll tell you one of the very first instances that I had a racist moment that I really realized, racism is really real, and white people think of us a certain way. I came here as a freshman at UTC, University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. I was a full ride on vocal scholarship. Professor Roland Carter, who's world-renowned African-American composer and arranger, he gave me a full scholarship here. And I was in all of his choral ensembles. He's African-American. And so I was in all his choral ensembles. He was the head of the music department at that time. He was the only Black in 1994, and also the head of the music department here at UTC. First time that's ever happened in the whole years of University of Tennessee, Chattanooga. So I had some other courses that I needed to take, some hours to fill. So I joined another particular singing organization that were called the Chattanooga Singers and the Singing Monks, who were the show choirs of UTC, which was headed by another director. And they were singing this song, to Chattanooga Choo Choo, pardon me, boys, at the Chattanooga Choo Choo. And I didn't realize, I've heard that song down through the years, but when I started singing that song, I looked at the lyrics. It is literally a white man talking to a black boy, a black man, and a white man talking to a black man. And he says, "Pardon me, boy, is at the Chattanooga Choo Choo, track 29, why don't you give me a shine?" And so they were singing this song, and all of a sudden, so the director says, "Hey, Anthony, why don't you do me a favor?" Because there's a part that goes, the black guy says, "All aboard," and he does that as the black porter. He said, "You'll be perfect for that." And it hit me all of a sudden. And at that moment, I got angry. I literally got angry, and so I couldn't show my anger. And I said, "No, I refuse to do that." And I immediately left the classroom, went to my dorm, and I was so mad and angry because he wanted me to go back 30, 40 years to where we were, right, to depict that. Right. I talked to Professor Carter, and I was so mad, I was angry, I was crying. I'm like, how dare he? This is before a whole lot of racial stuff happened. And I'm like, how dare he take me back there and try to make me be the boy and call me the boy? Yeah, I'm a grown man. I was 18 at the time, but I'm a grown man, And so that was one of my first instances of really experiencing racism and seeing how black or white people, especially older white people in the South, look at black people. That's my personal experience.
Yeah.
Man, I don't know if you have enough time to hear all my stories and experiences, but one more recent, I say more recent, it's probably been, 10 years now. When I first graduated from UTC, of course, my undergrad was in engineering, and I started with the Shelby County Engineering Department. When I walked into one of the first meetings, I was the only Black that was an entry-level engineer. Rest of them were older white men or foreign. And so you can understand the atmosphere there. But as time progressed, there were a lot of changes and transitions within the public works, which included engineering department, road department, all of that. And there was one other gentleman who was an assistant manager in one of the departments, and a management position came open. And he was the only one that qualified based upon the job posting. But they desired for another gentleman who was white to have the job. I kid you not, in Shelby County in the year 2000, maybe in 2003 or 4, they literally changed the post to keep this other gentleman out to give this job to this white brother. And so his name is Mike Bunner. He ended up having to file an EEOC complaint, and they ended up having to pay him because they did not offer him the job and change the job posting. In that same department, I was worked out of class because I was working in a position a little higher than the one that I had been hired for. And mind you, another white gentleman in the office next to me was working out of class. They paid him and did not pay me.
Wow.
I had to threaten to file a lawsuit. I had to go to EEOC. And I did this almost 2.5 to 3 years. So they ended up having to back pay 2 to 3 years. When I got transferred to another department, the administrator, who was white, God had given me favor with him. He's told me when I came to that department, he said, Linwood, they're already plotting to get you. I want to restructure so that you can report directly to me so we can save all of that drama. And so, like I said, there are many, one story after the other that says that this thing is still real. As recent as my daughter, who's in high school at a predominantly white high school, walks into one of her classes and the N-word is written on her desk. To show you how insensitive and how detached that son could be, she acknowledged it to the teacher, and he just brushed it off.
Wow.
And so finally, she took a picture of it and sent it to me. I called the school, couldn't get an immediate answer, so I posted on Facebook and on Instagram. When I did that, it went viral. That's when I got traction from the school and from the news media. Kind of picked it up, and we began to kind of push back on the several issues as it relates to race relations and discrimination, even in school. But it broke my heart that my daughter would still have to endure that kind of thing. But here's what was more heartbreaking, is that it's a norm for them. We talk to our children, they go to school and interact with a lot of white young people. I don't have anything against them, but it is a norm for them to hear that kind of thing. And so it's almost like they're getting desensitized. That's why I went back to the statement that we have to educate, we have to speak to them and talk to the coming generation to say, hey, this is not just a time period. This is something that has been ongoing, and you all have a responsibility if things do not change.
Yeah.
Let me also add something that Bishop said, because I remember that instance that happened with your daughter, and it angered me as well. Dr. Crispin works in the school system as well, and and we see this a whole lot with our children, and this is just me personally. I mean no disrespect, and if I offend those who are watching, please forgive me. But it angers me. It boils my blood when I see a young white person hanging out with another African American person, young person, and they're using that N-word back and forth. First of all, number one, the fact that we're using it so comfortably is wrong. That's number one. It's been ingrained in us. We say it, jokingly around each other, and we also use it as a term of endearment around each other, which is also wrong anyway. Number one. But when I start hearing other young, because I work at a high school, predominantly black high school, and of course, we have about a little trickle of little white students there, and the little white girl was dating, of course, one of the black boys, and so she gets into it with another black girl. And so the white girl saying, no, that's my N-word. That's my, I'm like, hold up. First of all, what are you, And I had to catch myself because, I remember, first of all, I was after school. These ain't my children. And I had to go home and to my children. And so I just had to walk away, but I had to address it the very next day because I had to, think about how I'm going to address it. But as Bishop was saying, our culture has gotten so desensitized to not just only racism, but also the not the overt racism, but even the covert racism, the underlying things, that's happening and it's being said, and little things that happen. We have to bring, as Bishop said, and as Dr. Crispin said, we have to bring awareness to these things. And then our kids, no, that's not okay. No, they can't talk to you that way. That term does not apply to you. This is who you are. This is who we respect each other as. And so If I'm not going to say it to you, nobody else is going to say it to you.
That's right. And I believe we all, as pastors and believers in Christ, we know that words are powerful. And a lot of times we have a tendency to live up to what we allow people to think of us or call us. So it is important to educate. And speaking of that, you walked right into it. Bishop Dillard walked us right into that. My next question before we close out this topic, what are the conversations you're having with your children? And I'll just be frank with me. The Ahmaud Arbery, that hit kind of hard for me because first of all, I run, I go jogging in my neighborhood, which is predominantly white, and I've had no bad experiences. But I think about that. Not only do I run, my son runs. He does a lot of jogging. And in fact, it was not probably less than a month ago. He went out jogging at night. It was like 9 o'clock and he hadn't told me. And when he came back, I was like, I'll just be honest. My nerves were a little bit like, you have to be careful with that. Because in our neighborhood, if someone calls the police or thinks you're suspected of that, an Ahmaud Arbery situation, a Trayvon Martin situation could easily arise. So I talked to them about awareness about that. They both drive. They both have cars. I talk to them about, making sure that you're non-threatening should a police officer ever pull you over. I tell them not only have your hands on the wheel, but roll all your windows down. Make sure that they can see fully inside your car so that they don't think somebody else might be trying to hurt them. So I told them about awareness even around people. I'm just being honest. If I'm at Walmart and it's late at night and it's dark, and I see a young woman of another race, particularly walking to her car, a lot of times I stop and I just make sure that I'm far away enough that I'm not perceived as a threat and allow her to get to her vehicle. And I might take a circuitous route to my car to make sure that it doesn't seem like I'm following her. And I was just wanting to get a little perspective from you guys. What conversations are you guys having with your children? Because I know you both of you have Black sons like I do. And Bishop, you also have a daughter, as I do as well. So what are those conversations you're having with Pastor Taylor?
That's now I could spend a whole lot of time here, Reverend, because I have three sons. Jeremiah now 18, Jarius will be 16, and Gerard will be 14. And not just when it comes to the race topic of race, but I had to have a long discussion, and you have to excuse me when I talk about this because it's very it means a lot to me. There was a situation where my son, Jarius, was accused by a white girl of touching her and things of that nature. I know my son, number one. I know he's young. I know he ain't got the Holy Ghost yet. I know he'll do some things. I'm not above the fact that my sons are not perfect. I know my sons will do, but I know some things that he will not do. Right. And he told me, Dad, I did not do it. I believed him. He was serious about it. And then when everything was told, the white girl wanted to get him in trouble. And so I had to have this conversation about my son, about not only race, but also being a young man, respecting young women, being accused, because, there are men who have violated women sexually, who done things inappropriately. But then there are a countless number of young Black men who are in jail, who have missed out on life opportunities because someone falsely accused them of something that they did not do. And I remember having a hard, long conversation about my son, about the South Pittsburgh boys. There's a story about the South Pittsburgh boys here in South Pittsburgh, Tennessee, from Alabama, Scottsboro boys rather. And so some young men were accused of raping a young white girl. And not only that, but, the young men in New York. And I had to tell them, you have to be above reproach. You have to be, you can't, although you want to be their friends. Yes, we're in 2020, but son, we yet live in a society where you can't trust everybody. Everybody's not your friend. I know you can cut up with young black girls a certain way and they'll brush it off, but you can't do that with certain young girls. And so I had to have that talk about sexuality and who you are, about keeping yourself, letting your life be above reproach. And not only that, but even when it comes to, again, to the race issue, Dr. Crispin, I've had that talk with my son, Jeremiah, on a number of occasions. And we gave him my wife's old car, a Honda, and it has tinted windows. And I'm thinking, okay, he's getting ready to go to Memphis. And so I got to get his windows untinted. And he's been stopped before by the police. And I told him the same protocols. Take your key out, put it on top of the car, and make sure all the windows are down, put your hand on the wheel. Yes, sir. No, sir. And a matter of fact, and as soon as it happens, you hit the button and you call me. I'm calling our attorneys, make sure they're on the line as well. It's sad that we as a culture, as a nation, have to do these things. And it angers me. It makes me upset. Yes, I'm a man of God. Yes, I'm a man of faith. But I should not have to, be worried about if my son's going to make it back home. And that's the thing. I said, son, if they arrest you, if they put you on the ground, don't fight. My thing is, I want you to come back home.
That's right.
Forget about your dignity. And he disrespected me. He talking to me crazy. That's fine. We'll get over that. But you need to come back home. Because there's so many young men who have not come back, and young women who have not come back home, all because of situations that have escalated beyond that. And I'm going to say this one, I'll acquiesce. Even when they look at our children, they don't see, oh, that's the son and daughter of Bishop Linwood Dillard. That's the son and daughter of Dr. Larry Crispin. That's the son of Pastor Taylor. They don't see our children like that. They see a black child.
That's right.
And so we have to, I've had to have this conversation, and think about it, I'm having these conversations over and over again. And your children, I have to have this conversation with Jerry. It's a whole lot, because he's the one that got all the mouth. And he's going to stand up for his rights. It ain't right, But sometimes you got to learn when to speak and when not to speak. And sometimes you got to learn how to let somebody else speak for you. You shut your mouth. I'm the parent. You're the child. Let me speak for you.
Right. And I just take up for Jarius. As a child, I was Jarius. So brother right there. I can identify with that. All right, Bishop Dillard.
Yeah, man. Same conversations. And if I can just be very frank, and as much as I'm thankful to see my kids grow older and independent, I get more and more nervous and, of course, prayerful, but just very concerned.
Right.
My daughter has a driver's license and she's ready for a car, and I'm not ready for her to have a car for her safety reasons, but also for the context of the conversation that we have. I mean, you just never know what they're going to run into. I know my son, he of course played basketball, and they are a very mixed school, so they have whites and some other nationalities there. And so sometimes they may go into various neighborhoods over each other's house to play basketball. And sometimes he asks Dad, well, after school, we're going to go walk over so-and-so's house. First thing that pop in my mind is, if something were to pop off and you and one other black guy are the only two in this group, immediately you're going to be blamed.
Right.
And then if we're not there to protect you in this predominantly white neighborhood,
right.
There's so many directions that this can go in. So even having to explain to him that certain things you just can't do.
Right.
In 2020, you talk about jogging and just going and walking. Even though you may have a right to do it, it may not necessarily be safe, especially by yourself or without an adult. It's not that we're trying to hover over our children, not let them grow, but we have to think about those kind of things, and it's disappointing and it's nerve-wracking because we know we have to release them. And I know you all are at that point now that they're 18 and graduated high school, getting ready to go on to bigger and better things, but we're having to release them in this society that is not ready for them.
Right.
We've done our best to get them ready for what is next. So just having those kinds of conversations, even my baby girl, not understanding why certain people think certain ways, because she's more of a kind of an intellectual. So we have to sit down and talk to her and walk through, why some people the way they are and how you respond to that. And that's why, going back to the initial conversation, Black Lives Matter is a real situation that demands even more. We have to do more parenting and more covering and making sure that our children are prepared for what we call the real world.
Right.
Can I also add one other thing, Dr. Crispin? You know, I know you all, us having sons, I'm also have to prepare my son. I let them know that before anything comes out your mouth, people perceive you by the way you carry yourself, by the way you look, by the way you dress. You know, I work like I said, at a black high school, and also at a predominantly black, well now really is predominantly Hispanic middle school and elementary school as a truancy officer. And the first thing that I tell my sons, you have to carry yourself a certain way. First of all, they're going to have a preconceived notion about you anyway. But you also want to be able to carry yourself a certain way that you don't give them any fuel.
Right.
You know, and you know, when I see our young African Americans, male and female, with the way they dress or they carry themselves, I'm not saying that you have to have all the top of the line clothes, but you know, wearing their pants off of their behinds, you know, the certain, you know, hairstyles. You know, when I was growing up, you know, a haircut was a must. If you didn't get a haircut, you got talked about.
Right.
Now, being nappy head is the thing, is the you know, the style now. And I have to tell my sons in this household, in this Taylor household, when you walk out that door, you have to look a certain way. You have to have your hair look a certain way. Your clothes must look a certain way. And I always tell my sons, we have a rule in our house called the 3 R's: respect, restraint, and responsibility. When you walk out those doors, those 3 rules apply. And so even when it comes to our children, I have to talk to them even about how they carry themselves. Dr. Professor Carter told me something, and I'll never forget it. I apply this to my life now, even as I'm furthering my education. He said, Anthony, he pulled me in his office. He said, Anthony, as a black man here at a predominantly white area and doing a lot of things in your life, when it comes to other races, you have to be 10 times smarter, 10 times better, 10 times more astute. And even when it comes to that, they still won't accept you. But you still have to be that way. I'll give you a prime example with our former president, President Obama. You know, you couldn't find a more educated, a more astute, a more articulate man than our former president. But people hold our current president in higher esteem to former President Obama because he's black.
Right. Yeah. And one of the things you mentioned there is just we have to do better because of the perception. The perception is already like a mark against us. So it's almost like we have to dress better to try to escape those perceptions. And I mean, that puts it, and the fact, everything that you guys have talked about, those are the answers I give to people when I talk about white privilege. If you don't have to do that, if you don't have to have those conversations with your children, if you don't have to dress better, if you don't have to worry about people not accepting you because of your race, if you don't have to have special instructions for the police officers or special instructions in school, that's white privilege. Because we basically have to do those things for the only reason. All of us, we're all educated, employed, law-abiding citizens. We're not talking about criminals. We have to do those things simply because we're black. And if you don't, then that's what white privilege looks like. So
can I just add one more thing to the conversation, because it's a blessing that the 3 of us are in our sons' lives and our children's lives, and we are in our wives' lives. They're not out there trying to raise these children by themselves. But how much more there are many other young men and young women that do not have anyone to have these conversations with.
Right.
And I think going back to this issue of all lives matter versus Black lives matter, the reason why the history, again, is so important is because the history and our experience has impacted our culture, our diet, our spirituality, the way we engage, how we treat one another, is a result of systemic racism over the years and in our present time. Right. And, my heart goes out, and I know we all are busy, and I'm sure you all do the same thing in education, obviously. But we have to even be fathers and mentors and coaches to so many others, because they don't have anyone that's in the house with them telling them how to be a young man, a young lady, or how to carry or conduct themselves, or how to protect themselves, or how to go in and out in these different situations. And so I think this is a very critical time, and it takes all of us being unselfish and reaching out beyond our immediate spheres of responsibility.
Right. And while we're talking about I think Pastor Taylor kind of hit on it earlier, and I wanted to review that, and I wanted to go to, he was talking about the flag, and I wanted to talk about the statues, that they're removing a lot of the statues. One of and I just wanted to give my thoughts on that. I think we lost Pastor Taylor for a moment. He'll be back. On removing the statues, it seems to me like some people are very hesitant for that. And then there are some who are very excited about that notion, and they think that it's very important. My personal stance on a statue is, a statue can be history. And to me, it's just a matter of where do you put it? Do you have a statue? And my thought is, if we have statues of people who have complicated histories, particularly as it relates to race, and if their presence is very offensive to a large group of people, then maybe it needs to be in a museum, and maybe not in a prominent place in town where people honor it. And similarly, as it relates to names, like how do you name something? For example, on MTSU campus, there is a building that's named after Nathan Bedford Forrest. It's Forrest Hall. There's a lot of controversy about that. I personally believe that Nathan Bedford Forrest is part of our history. The question is, should he be honored? And I'll just be honest, it was a few years ago. I was on a field trip, and I was at the Capitol building in Tennessee, and I passed by the Nathan Bedford Forrest statue. And I'll be honest, I felt some kind of way about that. It's almost like a demeaning part of my people's past is sitting there almost unbothered, staring ahead in my face in a place of honor, saying I'm still here and you can't get rid of me. So I just wanted to get your thoughts, because like I said, my personal thought is, people are saying preserve history. And to the flag issue, Pastor Taylor, the Confederate flag particularly, the Confederacy lasted for 5 years. So for people to say that's part of their history, they're talking about 5 years of their history. I think somebody said the Spice Girls were together longer than that. So to say that's part of your history, I think that's disingenuous. And also, if you examine the history of that flag, the particular flag that is displayed was not the main flag anyway. The main flag was one with a white background, which was white for a reason. And then it had a emblematics similar to the battle flag in the corner. So it was not a prominent flag even as part of the Confederacy, and then the Confederacy only lasted 5 years. So it's disingenuous to say that it was part of their history. It became more prominent as it relates to the KKK using it, and other groups who were outwardly and very, very forwardly racist. So it has had a longer history of racism than it has of representing anything in the South. But as it relates to the statues and the flags and those things, my thought is, yes, it's part of history. Maybe it belongs in a museum, but should it be in a place of honor? I personally think it shouldn't be. But I'll be the person who also says you don't have to destroy it. Just go put it on a dolly and put it in a museum and have it and give it historical context. But to have a place of honor, I don't agree with it. And then my last statement here on this is, I think I heard it and it was a fact, and I think it just recently changed after all this happened. There was a predominantly Black high school, I believe in Alabama or Mississippi, that was named Robert E. Lee High School, that was like 90+% Black African American. And so that that obviously was not, to me, was not appropriate. And I just want to get your thoughts on that. Bishop, I'll let you go ahead first.
Sure. I think you really hit the nail on the head. The purpose of a monument or a statue is to give honor. And considering the historical backdrop of these statues that we're speaking of, definitely is not an honorable position or even context. I think that I don't know if I would even care if they were in a museum, just because of what they represent.
Right.
And in addition to that, I think if we're going to go for monuments and statues, I think we have to go for the gusto. We need to go for these street names, these city names, the county names, and don't stop there, because it's about the principle of the matter, especially here in the South. Going back to, again, that's why education and awareness is so very important. To me, to have a Bedford statue is like having a KKK statue standing up somewhere. And to your point, I guess I kind of give a little leniency if you want to have some type of mural or something in some museum, just so that you can tell the story. But I just think monuments and statues and street names and cities and counties should be given to people of honor and dignity who brought significant value in a proper and righteous way. And so the statue issue, of course, you all know here in Memphis, a couple of years ago, there was a great big move where there was a gentleman and his corporation bought a certain piece of property that had one of these similar statues there and had it taken. That was a great big issue here. And then we even have parks named after some of these individuals. So I'm saying we need to go for it all and don't just stop at the statues and monuments.
All right.
Yeah, I totally agree. You all, as Bishop said, y'all hit the nail on the head concerning that. It's funny that we are talking about this, because every day that I come to the church here at the office, I drive by a cemetery. It's called Orchard Knob. Orchard Knob is where they say a battle was fought, literally, not 100 yards away from where I'm sitting right now. It's a monument of the Confederacy, and I drive by that and I see the flags and I see the honor, and then again, like you said before, when you look at the history of the Confederacy, you're honoring and celebrating some people who succeeded from the country. They were not patriots. We are not. It goes to show you the ironic and erroneous, or should I say, stupid mentality of the people of our today. You know, you wanna say that Colin Kaepernick and people who kneel are not patriots. They don't love our country. They don't stand for our country. But these are people who wanted to succeed. From our nation. Because of slavery.
You call them terrorist traitors.
Exactly. And so why would we honor them? Who not only who were seceding from our country, but they're also terrorists. They killed white and blacks, abolitionists, as well as slaves who were trying to get free. So why would you want to honor something that? That's just me. I'm a little radical when it comes to that. I'm like, Bishop, tear everything down, burn everything. That's just me, because again, the history behind everything is just like it's just like people who celebrate, people who are pedophiles. People like I'm gonna say his name, but there's a certain rock star there in the city of Memphis that they honor. He married a 14, 13-year-old girl. Those kind of things, So why are we honoring these kind of people when things should be said, the truth should be said about them? And so I just want to kind of throw that out there as well.
And if I can just go back again, I think that there are some things that are historically significant and important that should be discussed. And then there are things that are honorable. And at this point, if we're going to be true to seeing radical change in our nation, then we have to make some radical moves. And that's going down the line of what we're talking about. because we don't need to put band-aids on this and knock this statue down, but yet we still have certain flags representing certain things, and we still have certain systems representing certain things. There's still oppression in certain ways. So I know that there's some work that is being done, but I think it requires a complete makeover. The United States of America needs a complete makeover. All these cute conversations and discussions they having on the news, and even what some of the things that they're trying to push in Congress and in the Senate is still insufficient.
Right.
When they do those things, we still are going to have the conversations that we've been having with our children.
Right. And that's true. And then some of the harder conversations, as you said, might need to happen as it relates to let's even go to our money. I think Andrew Jackson's legacy speaks for itself on the $20 bill. He's being honored there. He was one of the more virulent racists. Not only did he own slaves, but many remember the Trail of Tears. That was Andrew Jackson. And then even when the Cherokee Nation versus Georgia ruled in favor of the Native Americans by the Supreme Court, Andrew Jackson said, well, the Supreme Court, you get your army and enforce this. And he still forced them along the Trail of Tears. So he was an equal opportunity racist, and he is honored on our currency.
Absolutely.
So there are some hard conversations that need to be had. George Washington, he's given credit for saying that his slaves should be released after his wife's death. So they give him credit for that. Because when he died, he didn't release them while he was alive, and he said after his wife's death, she maybe should release them, and he's almost held in honor because of that. But he owned slaves all of his life. He was one of the biggest slaveholders in Virginia, along with his wife, whose part of her dowry were slaves that were given to her by her parents. So that is a very complicated history. So I think even in honoring those who are considered our founding fathers, if you're going to honor, there needs to be context. And I think and everything that I'm telling you, none of this was taught for me in American history. When I was in school, this was not part of our conversation. It was not part of our history. It was glossed over. They were propped up as superhuman beings that we should honor and respect. And those parts were left out of history. So as you said, Bishop, both of you have said, we need to make sure that we're teaching history and putting things in context as it relates to that.
If I could add something also to that, beyond us having these hard conversations, we have to have an action plan in place also to address these things. One thing that, I appreciate the fact that you are having this conversation with us, your brothers and comrades. But my thing is, even when it comes to the fact that you're going to have this conversation with the other races, because they need to understand, although we understand this, your culture needs to understand this as well. And it's going to be a hard pill for them to swallow, to understand that the people that you hold in high esteem were, in a sense, villains. There were people who were not, they were not really good people. And when it comes to us having this conversation, because again, I don't mind sitting down and talking with someone about this. My thing is, after I get through sitting down and talk with you about it, what are you going to do as a white person to make sure that this doesn't perpetuate down through your lineage? What are you going to do to help change the narrative and change the culture and the climate of our society? Or because my thing is, if you're silent, then you're adding to the problem. If you're not speaking out, then you're adding to the problem. So, I have those who will be watching this, who maybe of other races and other ethnicities, and even socioeconomic backgrounds. We have to have these conversations, and also not only that, but have an action plan. What are we doing forward now to make sure that racial harmony and racial reconciliation is happening, and not just a bywords or watchwords or catchphrases that we use to make people feel good?
Right. And I believe that's very important. And I want to close out this topic with I just want you to give me your thoughts. Two things I want you to address together. I want you to talk about, because Bishop Dillard really brought this thought to the forefront, about who's telling the story. And recently, some of our storytellers just died. We've had several of our civil rights leaders, some of those who are still holding the mantle, those who were very prominent in the civil rights fight, just recently passed. And I want you to give me your thoughts on these men who've passed. And to wrap up, give me what your vision is. What is your thoughts as to what you can see happening in our lifetimes as it relates to the improvement of race relations? Those two things. Your thoughts on the passing of these powerful men who held up the banner for civil rights, and also what is your vision in terms of what you think we can see in our lives for the improvement of race relations? And I'll start with you, Bishop.
Sure. Of course, I think that history shows us that God always prepared one generation to prepare another generation to continue a message, to continue a standard, to continue a fight. And we're seeing the end of a generation, or an era, if you will. And even in as much as they were represented in another generation in a different context, their presence, their mentorship, their voice, their reasons for fighting, I think resonated and was given to us. And in this hour, I think that we have a responsibility to continue the fight, continue the work, and recall a lot of the things that motivated them and a lot of the principles that they stood for. In other words, we're still fighting, just in a different way, the same fight they fought 50 some years ago.
Right.
But in terms of a visionary perspective, I think we are at a little more advantage, if you will, because of, I think, this last recent incident with George Floyd raised a new level of awareness outside of our ethnic group, if you will. And there are more conversations that are being had. There are some very bold moves that are taking place. And I think that we cannot allow it to die down. Every Black man or Black woman ought to avail themselves in some way or another to help perpetuate change. Even when we talk about police reform, it's going to start in our locales, in our cities, and our counties. We have to meet with the mayors, the city council, the commissioners. We have to hold our congressmen that we're electing accountable, our governors. I think we need to take advantage of this moment. As we've been hearing and seeing, there's never been a move like we're seeing right now around the issue of police brutality and even race relations. And so you have to know what the time is. The children of Issachar had an understanding of times that they knew what Israel ought to do. So we discern where we are. We can't let this moment pass by, because we may not capture this moment anymore. We're seeing major corporations. We're seeing white men and white women who are willing to at least try to understand. They're at the table. We have lawmakers and legislation at a place that we've never seen in recent years, of where we can really press in. But we can't just sit in our houses and talk about and complain about what we see on TV or see scrolling through our phones. We have to be out and vote. We have to engage in conversation. We have to demand justice where it's needed and involve ourselves in our community, especially the church. And I'll say this and I'll close. I think that the Black church, if we're not careful, we're going to allow, as we are seeing other organizations lead the movement. The Black church is always, the Black preacher has always been the person that stood and ensured that people are treated fairly and that our message is being resounded. But now, and I don't have anything against activists. I'm working with them here in Memphis, but we cannot leave it to the activists there's a place that God has given us in this whole narrative and experience, and we have to stand up for it and to it.
Amen, Bishop.
I totally agree with Bishop, and I concur with everything that you said. When you look at the leaders who've gone by, C.T. Vivian and John Lewis, Elijah Cummings, and John Conyers, these men of God who were in Congress and Senate, who helped make change in their generations, and also for us, it's just like they're passing the baton now. And my question is, I'm having this discussion, matter of fact, with our for our Sunday school hour on Saturday afternoon, our Saturday night Sunday school, meeting with our millennials, and we're talking about passing the baton, passing the mantle. Are they ready and to receive it? And my question is now, even as we are, we're all the same age. We're all between 40 and 45. I'll put it like that. And so
you're older than me. Y'all the seniors.
So I think Larry older than all of us.
I'm the oldest.
Because you are 40. You'll be 44 this year, right?
I'm already 44.
That's right. Okay, yeah, you're old. So anyway, I'll be 44. But when it comes to the next generation, and I know I'm kind of getting off, but even when it comes to right now, the subject that we're talking about right now, when it comes to us moving to that next level and bringing, speaking for our generation and for this time, as Bishop was saying, we as the Black church, the Lord convicted me. He said, Anthony, why are you just sitting here having church and nothing is happening in the community? I'm sitting here shouting and dancing. We're speaking in tongues. We run around the church having great church, but there's so much going on around 1817 East 3rd Street. I didn't know who our city commissioner was, and who our county commissioner and city council, all these people. The mayor didn't know who I was. But it wasn't until I got out there and I started speaking, putting my voice to that, and I'm speaking against what's going on in our city, around my neighborhood. Yes, I applaud our efforts for George Floyd, but we've had racial situations where police have been brutal here in the city of Chattanooga. And I stood with those pastors out there. And I hate to say it, I was the only Kojic pastor out there on the forefront with other Baptist pastors and Methodist pastors, speaking against the sheriff's department. But I felt that I had a need to represent not only God, but also the people that I serve, and also the Church of God in Christ, because it was the Church of God in Christ that was on the forefront of the lines of the civil rights movement. We're the ones that brought Martin Luther King here to Mason Temple and things of that nature to speak his last speech. Bishop G.E. Patterson, Bishop W.L. Porter, and those other leaders in Memphis, Bishop J.O. Patterson, were able to bring him here. And so we have to speak truth to power and again, get out of our four walls and start talking and being a part of those conversations. And again, and I'll say this, and I'll digress. When it comes to even to us being, I'm using my words carefully, because we have people who are activists who they have the right understanding, they have the right motives, but they're not being brought to the table to talk because of their actions. If I can say it like that. We have a daughter of the Church of God in Christ here who is a very powerful activist, making some things happen, but they're not going to sit down and talk with her because of the way she's going about doing it. We have to speak truth to power, but also use wisdom in doing that. And so I think that God has now called us who, we're young enough, we're not too old, but we're not too young as well. We're right there in that age group where we can get pulled from the young and also pull from the wisdom of the old and bring ourselves to the table and help bring about change for our country.
Right. And I think you talked about age. I think we're at age where we're young enough not to be scared. We're old enough not to be scared. Well, hold on. We're young enough where we're not scared, but we're old enough where we don't mind dispensing what we think either. So I think you're right. You're right at that age level. I think we're at a place where I'm going to split this anyway, so I might as well hit this next term before we move on. Cancel culture. I want to talk about that.
I hope and pray that each of you were touched and inspired by our service today. If you wish to partner with us, you can do so by Giveify. Download the app on Apple Store or Google Play and search for Bright Temple. If you wish to partner with us on Cash App, just look for Bright Temple in the 2 line, and in the 4 line, tell us the purpose of your gift. If you would rather mail your gift, you can mail us at Bright Temple, Post Office Box 453, Shelbyville, Tennessee 37162. Thanks in advance for your generosity, and we pray God's blessings on you and your gift.